following is a CUNY TV special presentation.
The Chancellor oversees one of the country's largest school systems, with serving 1.1 million students in 1,800 schools. The Chancellor is a lifelong educator. She spent 22 years as a teacher at PS 29 in Brooklyn and went on to leadership positions as principal, superintendent, and then deputy chancellor before being tapped by Mayor de Blasio for the lead post of the Department of Education last year. The Chancellor, there's no more important issue to ABNY and our members than improving our public education system. Strong schools educate our city's workforce for college and career in today's economy. They provide opportunity for the people who have to come to New York, who want to come to New York to live, work, and stay to raise their families. ABNY has been a strong supporter of mayoral control of the school system, and we believe that accountability and leadership are critical to making the swift and effective changes our schools need to better educate and serve our city's students. We applaud the administration's success implementing the universal pre-K this past September and rolling out significant new after-school programs in middle schools across the city. These new investments in our city's children are already having a significant positive impact, but we know there's still much more to come. Chancellor, we are grateful for your leadership and dedication to our city and our students, and we're glad you've joined us here this morning to share your vision for improving our schools. Now, Carmen, you can come up. Ladies and gentlemen, Chancellor Carmen Fariña.
I want to thank everyone who came out today. Whether you're a business leader, an educator, a parent, a policymaker, or some other type of civic leader, you're all here because you care about our children. I'm personally grateful for all that you have done for them, and I'm counting on your help to create the best urban school district in this entire country. Because let's be honest, it's going to take an all-out, 5-borough unified effort to change the status quo and fix our schools for good. The status quo is simply unacceptable. We are failing far too many of our kids with dire consequences that ripple out far beyond individual families. This is a make or break issue, not just for our city, but for our children's city, and particularly our grandchildren's city. Any of you that are grandparents know you'll fight to the death for your grandchildren. Your kids can take care of themselves. Today I am announcing a change that is commensurate to the challenge we face. But before we start talking about the future, I'm going to indulge my love of history and talk a little bit about the past. Specifically, I'm going to tell you about my journey as an educator, which begins with my first experience as a student. All of us deal with our work world based on our past experiences, and you need to know who I am before you know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I was born in 1943, the entire world knows my age, to a family that moved to Brooklyn to escape the Spanish Civil War. I didn't speak English when I started school, and my teacher marked me absent every day because I never raised my hand during roll call. I wasn't being disobedient, although I could have been. I just never heard my name being called. It turns out my teacher was mispronouncing my last name, and my dad had to come down to school to make sure I was marked present and teach her how to say it. She didn't always welcome that particular bit of advice. In high school, without my knowledge, I was placed in a non-academic track. I took typing and stenography, probably the only chancellor today who can still take 60 words a minute, in all preparation for a much different life than the one I imagined for myself. How did I get off that track and end up here today? Naturally, an outstanding teacher deserves a lot of credit. Her name was Sister Leonard, and she saw that even back then, I wasn't willing to settle for the status quo, knew I was capable of more, and so did Sister Leonard. With Sister Leonard's help, I caught up on math classes I missed and eventually made it to college, 4-year scholarship, the first in my family to do so. I decided to become a teacher because I couldn't think of anything more fulfilling than helping children reach their true potential. And even back then, I hoped that I could somehow play a role in fixing the underlying problems that stifle the ambition of so many of my peers. Remember that in those days, a woman did not necessarily go on to higher education and work outside the home, and this is something that to this day I hold as a true value. In 1965, I began my career as a teacher in PS 29 in Cobble Hill, Brooklyn. My work was guided by the lessons Sister Leonard taught me. Every child has potential, and every educator has the responsibility to do whatever it takes to make that child realize their dreams. I certainly wasn't a perfect teacher, but I'll tell you this, I gave it my all day in, day out. I held parent-teacher conferences at my house in Brooklyn. I brought an old refrigerator box to class and turned it into a reading nook complete with a skylight and pillows. Jonathan Latham, a student of mine, who's obviously a famous author, calls that putting him in a box, and I literally did. On the bicentennial, I took my students down to Philadelphia to celebrate so they could see for themselves where the cradle of our history started, so they could live it as well as learn about it. Of course, my most important work was done in the classroom. I sometimes had up to 40 students. Remember those? Well, Michael, you wouldn't remember, but a lot of people in the room might remember. But I made it a point to forge a personal relationship with each child, and I tailored my curriculum to reflect what I had learned about their strengths and needs. For example, I had two students who loved to debate, Josh and Alex. In those days, most teachers considered the term healthy debate an oxymoron, but I decided to take a different approach. I made Josh and Alex our classroom lawyers, because I love to teach American history, and I assigned them to write opposing briefs on whatever topic we were discussing that day. Thanks to their hard work, our day was always full of boisterous discussion. We had some really great debates in that class, and one of them has turned out to be a lawyer today. The type where everyone, myself included, walks away always learning something. Strategies like that didn't make just teaching more fun. They got results. My classes always scored above average, and I was recognized as Citywide Teacher of the Year in 1981. After more than 2 decades in the classroom, in 1991, I accepted an offer to become the principal of PS 6 on the Upper East Side, the famous Red Doors. My MO was simple. My staff and I were going to turn a good school into a great school, and we were going to do that by just getting to know each and every student. Some teachers brought in immediately and already had the tools they needed to thrive. Some teachers brought in, but they needed new tools, so I used every means at my disposal to provide them with training and connect them to colleagues whose skill matched their needs. Finally, some teachers were either unwilling or unable to get with the program, and those teachers had to go. That process was often more congenial than you would expect. I remember one teacher in particular, a lovely woman who walked into my office one day looking very serious. She understood what we were trying to do, and she understood why it was important. She simply didn't feel that she was capable of going in that new direction, and she chose to leave the next year. I was eventually appointed District Regional Superintendent and then Deputy Chancellor. Although my responsibilities changed, my approach remained the same. Whether supervising students, teachers, or principals, I worked to forge a personal connection, identify their strengths and weaknesses, and connect them to the support they need. Supervision and support must come together. My expectations were clear, and I held people accountable for meeting them. Over my first 3 months as superintendent, I had one-on-one conversations with each of more than 150 principals in my region. I asked all of them 3 questions, the same 3 questions that I asked every teacher when I became principal. What changes do you think I need to make as a superintendent? What do you do well that you're willing to share with others? And what would you like to do better? I then matched each principal with a colleague whose strengths matched his or her needs. I'm happy to report that some of them are still friends today. For the most part, this approach was remarkably successful, but when it didn't work, I was hands-on in making the necessary changes. I share these stories to give you a sense of who I am as a person and as a leader. Collaboration and accountability are of paramount importance, and they work together. Every teacher and every principal should know where we're headed, and their supervisors should have an accurate picture of their school's strengths and weaknesses and know how to use their resources wisely. Mayor de Blasio shares my vision of a school system built on collaboration and accountability. He and I have worked together for nearly 20 years, so we've been able to hit the ground running. To say that I'm proud of all that we've accomplished in our first year would be an understatement. We've delivered on many promises, especially some that many thought was nothing more than a dream, providing 53,000 four-year-olds with high-quality, full-day pre-kindergarten. Our four-year-olds are learning new vocabulary words, exploring the natural world through interactive science experiments, and picking up critical interpersonal skills. One of the greatest pleasures I have in my job is visiting four-year-old classrooms and talking to kids about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I always come back to the office with at least one more idea that I want them to try. And I think my staff runs when they see me coming back from a school visit. Next year, we will expand the system to reach every eligible child. This means more of our parents and guardians are sleeping a little bit more soundly, secure in the knowledge that their children can explore their talents in the arts, physical activity, or debate clubs, and have somewhere safe and engaging to go after the final bell. Nobody needs more nurturing than a seventh grader. They are my personal mission. Any of you who have had seventh graders living with you, if you didn't send them off to boarding school and you survived that, you know what I'm talking about. We launched the Community Schools Initiative, which will engage parents and local nonprofits as true partners in providing services that address the real-life needs of kids and their families. I know that this sounds a little jargony. The DOE has a tendency to do that, but it means schools are home to the resources families need, like dental clinics, medical clinics, or literacy classes for parents. We can bemoan the fact that we have to provide these services, but I would rather look at this as a way to ensure that we're serving the whole child and the whole family, and that is our job as citizens of this city. We agreed on, I have to learn to stop for applause, right? This is good. We agreed on contracts with the United Federation of Teachers and the Council of School Supervisors and Administrators. And these contracts are a lot more than just about money. They will spur innovation through our schools. We negotiated to create the PROS program, which allows school leaders and teachers to color outside the line regarding work rules, innovative programs, and policies. I was just at a school where a principal said to me, "Carmen, I have a great idea," but I said, "Really?" She says, "But I have other two schools in the building." I said, "Sit at the table, figure out how the three of you are going to do it together, and apply for PROS." It's become a way of saying, well, this is a box, but you have room outside the box. And we couldn't have done that if we didn't talk to the leaders of the building, of the unions that we work with. It makes sense, common sense. Finally, we have engaged in a citywide effort to engage parents as our partners. I have done town halls around the city, much too many to count. Almost 300 people show up at each of the town hall meetings, and hosted all-day parent conferences at Tweed, where I listen to parents and answer their questions. All of these initiatives were accomplished on a tight timeline, and they required us to push the system hard. I will draw on these early successes along with my 5 decades in education. It almost scares me when I say 5 decades, as I pursue my next and most critical goal, fixing the system that supports and holds accountable each and every one of our schools. Put simply, we need to do a much better job of making sure all our students graduate prepared for college and careers that haven't even been invented yet. And that means doing a much better job evaluating our schools, identifying problems, and holding ourselves accountable for fixing those problems. Today, I'm going to tell you about the 3 major changes we're undertaking. 2 of them I announced last year, and the other I'm announcing today. As any teacher can tell you when presenting a lot of information, it's important to have an outline. My husband says I have to stop talking like a teacher. After 50 years, that's not going to stop. Number 1, we are providing schools with a new roadmap for improvement. We call it the Framework for Great Schools, and it is based on the latest research and what makes good schools good. We have also revised the school report card, creating parent-friendly school snapshots. The new report includes more and better data and will help parents make informed decisions about their child's education. Number 2, we're investing $150 million and our very best thinking into 94 struggling schools. We call it the Renewal School Initiative, and it will provide targeted schools with an extra hour of learning time, mental health services, after-school programs, teacher training, and principal support. We fully expect this investment to pay off in terms of improved outcomes, and if it doesn't, we will hold the schools accountable. All options are on the table when it comes to turning around struggling schools. Number 3, and this is the one that all of you have been waiting for, I am announcing we will streamline and align the school support structures. This means eliminating the structures referred to as the Children First networks and replacing them with stronger superintendents and borough field support centers. Now let's circle back to the first change I mentioned, a new framework for great schools. I know the term is still new to a lot of you, but it's actually common sense, one of my favorite words. The framework for great schools is a tool to diagnose school strengths and areas that need improvement. Speaking of common sense, many of the ideas embedded in the framework will resonate deeply with longtime educators, and that's because it's based on ideas that originate in schools that have beat the odds and improved year after year. Let me elaborate. When I walk a school, I look for very specific clues, and many of the reporters in the room that have walked schools with me will notice that in 2 seconds I can really tell you if I'm walking into a good building, one that needs improvement, or one that I'm shuddering by the time I get to the end of the day. Is there student work on the wall? That means the school is proud of what they're doing. There needs to be student writing. Are there conversations in the classroom? Silent classrooms are not classrooms where learning is taking place. All of you in business know that if you had a board meeting or any kind of meeting and you were the only one talking, the information would only get to one person, those who were listening and those who just look like they're listening. You need to have kids and people talking to each other. Is the principal clearly in command? I went to a school where not one person looked at the principal in the eye when they walked into each of the classrooms. That tells me a lot about that kind of leadership. Is the staff receptive to suggestions? And is there evidence of family engagement? Is there an evidence that parents are welcomed in that building? The framework was developed at the University of Chicago's Consortium on School Research. The researchers looked at schools that beat the odds and asked what's special about these schools. And then they identified 6 attributes. Number 1, rigorous instruction. Are there high expectations in that classroom? Are kids being asked to do difficult things? Or are we dumbing down the curriculum and giving things that they can do easy? Collaborative teachers. The staff is committed not only to working with their own students, but with each other. Are they sharing good ideas? Are their doors open? I remember the day when teachers locked their doors, and if they had a good idea, they were afraid someone was going to steal it. I had a teacher in my building, hysterical one day, because she was crying. I thought there was a death in the family, and I took her in, and I said, what's going on? She says, Carmen, you're never going to believe this. And I said, what happened? She says, Mrs. So-and-so stole my bulletin board and ideas. I said, well, be grateful that she flattered you to say you did something good, because I don't know if I would have worried about that so much. And that sense of this is mine, and if it's good, I can't share it, is really a scary thing in education, and we have to get rid of that. Supportive environment. The school is safe and orderly. We've gone a long way since I was here as Deputy Chancellor, and our schools are much safer, but they also need to be orderly. Is there a sense that kids know what's expected of them? Is there a sense that they can do certain things independently? Teachers need to have high expectation for students. We also need to have strong ties to family and community. We have a program now where on Tuesdays or any day of the week, principals have been expected to do a lot more reaching out to parents and sharing a lot more information with parents about their child's progress or lack thereof. This is the month where I've asked principals specifically to share with parents what their kids need more help in before we get to June. Effective leaders. The principal and other school leaders work with fellow teachers, school staff, families, and students to implement a clear and strategic vision for school success. An effective leader must be a good communicator. Any of you in business know that if you can't get your message out there, then people don't know what your expectations are. And we need to make sure that our leaders can do that. And trust. Sometimes this seems to be a little bit more amorphous, and yet it's one of the most important things at any organization. The entire school community works to establish and maintain trusting relationships. Say what you mean and mean what you say is a very important part of moving an organization forward. Researchers found that schools that were strong in all 6 measures was 10 times more likely to improve reading scores, math scores, and attendance. Research shows us that attendance is one of the most important keys to success in school. If you're not there, you can't learn. 19 days absence constitutes a month of no learning, and that is a real important statistic we need to keep in front of us. We found the same thing here in New York City. Looking at 2013 evaluations, schools that were strong on these measures were 6 times more likely to score over the city average on English. They were also more likely to score higher in math. We'll be evaluating every school in terms of these 6 measures. We will target supports to areas where school is weak, and we will hold the school accountable for demonstrating improvement. We also need to create a better way of sharing what we find with principals, teachers, and parents. and I might add, business community. This fall, we announced a new report card for our schools. We will produce 2 versions for each school. The School Quality Snapshot provides a concise, user-friendly picture of the quality of each school designed with parents in mind. The School Quality Guide provides a more robust set of information about each school. Both guides will contain much of the baseline information that you've seen in previous report cards: state test results, graduation rates, Regents pass rates, a school's track record in closing the achievement gap, and other predictors of success in college, career, and beyond. All of this information will be shown in comparison to the average scores of other schools in the district and across the city. The information we're gathering will be a crucial tool for our superintendents when it comes to directing resources where they need to go and making tough decisions about the future of a given school, especially those that are struggling. Renewal schools. That brings me to the second big change I mentioned, our $150 million school renewal effort. In announcing the program back in November, Mayor de Blasio promised that we would move heaven and earth to help these 94 schools, and we are. Right now, renewal schools are in the middle of a dramatic transformation process. Our investments in each school will focus on 4 key priorities. First, we will transform every renewal school into a community school, and now we have a new director of community schools. Because we know that engaging community-based organizations as partners, it's a great way to engage family and improve student outcomes. Second, each renewal school will have expanded learning time, which is an extra hour of instruction. The school will also get additional after-school program seats. Third, we will provide renewal school teachers with more training. That means intensive coaching from experts inside and outside the school system, and we are also providing the same for principals. Fourth and finally, we will offer high-quality summer programs for students enrolled in renewal programs, and some of you in this room are partners with us in that effort. In the end, it all comes down to my favorite word, accountability. Our superintendents are having tough conversations with principals at these schools about what must change. If we don't see improvement, we will take action. Now we have reached the last change I'd like to discuss with you: streamlining and aligning our school support structure. I served as Deputy Chancellor during the Bloomberg administration, so I saw firsthand how mayoral control allowed principals and administrators to get a lot more done with strong instructional leaders at the helm, and I was one of them. And thanks to them, we have the freedom to appoint superintendents directly and then hold them accountable for results. They are not beholden to elected school boards. They answer to me, and I answer to the mayor. Up until now, the process of supervising school and the process for supporting schools ran on parallel tracks, but the parallel tracks kind of went this way. Today, I'm announcing a new approach. It is structured around 2 fundamental principles. One, we need a system with clear lines of authority and accountability. And 2, we need to safeguard the independence of strong school leaders because they know their schools best. Beginning in the fall of 2015, superintendents will support and supervise schools, period. I'm comfortable giving them this authority because I am confident in their ability. I personally oversaw the selection of these superintendents. And take my word for it, never in the history of New York City, ever, have all the superintendents be selected at one time to ensure there's a uniformity of purpose and philosophy. All district and high school superintendents had to reapply for their jobs. And we changed the criteria to ensure that all new superintendents had at least 10 years of pedagogical experience, including at least 3 as a principal. They must also have had a proven record of student improvement and facilitating community involvement and input in the schools. We now have 45 superintendents, including 15 brand new ones. They will be my eyes and ears, and again, unlike the system before, they answer to me. First, each superintendent will have a small team to help support students, families, and schools. Second, we will create 7 borough support centers, 2 in Brooklyn, 2 in Queens, and 1 in each of the other boroughs. Each of these centers will house the full range of school support personnel, including experts in instruction, operation, student services, including health, resources, and counseling, working with English language learners, and working with students with special needs. And the number of these centers and their location will be publicly stated around the city, so parents will know where to go when needed. The personnel in these offices will report to a field service center director who will be experienced and highly qualified. With 7 centers instead of 55 networks, each center can build the scale and expertise necessary to provide customized support for all schools. It's not a one-size-fits-all. They will be more flexible, more efficient, and more equitable while still utilizing much of the expertise already in the system. Finally, we will make more strategic use of the existing partnership support organizations, or PSOs, now to be called affinity groups. These nonprofit organizations and university partners provide support, coaching, and guidance on school program management and planning. I'm talking about organizations like New Visions, Urban Assembly, and CUNY. They will remain our valued partners. I know how many schools depend on them for the support they need. Under the new structure, they will continue to provide targeted support, but they will be brought, many of them, under a superintendent. So there's a more fluid interaction between what they do and what we need to help them do. And they will be held accountable for results, just like everyone else. They will also serve as models in area of their specific strengths for schools across the city, and will be asked to host visitors to see that specific area of strength. One of them is going to specialize on English language learners, another one is going to be doing more work on data, and every one of them has been given an assignment of something they do particularly well that everyone will benefit from. And school leaders will have more freedom to choose the services they would like from that group or any other group. On the topic of budgets, I want to be clear about what is not changing. Principals will remain control over their budgets and who they hire. There are, anyone who knows me knows that I love to play with budgets, and there's no way I would take it away from a principal who knows how to get the most out of their money. I used to do courses on this for principals. But let me reiterate the crucial point. Superintendents will be responsible for getting schools the tools they need to succeed. And it is superintendents who will hold school leaders accountable for results. And I will hold superintendents accountable. And that is the structure. Simple and clear. It is common sense. We are drawing clear lines of authority and holding everyone in the system accountable for student performance. Schools get supervision and support from one place, the superintendent. Families have one place to call if they cannot solve problems at school, the superintendent. My senior team at Tweed will know where to go when issues arise, the superintendent. Poor superintendent, they're going to need a lot of rest. It will be easier for schools to share best practices. We will be able to make swift interventions in struggling schools and not wait 3 years, and do a better job of holding them accountable. And all our offices, from central to the field, will be aligned under one vision. Of course, the buck ultimately stops with me. Thanks to the new structure, I will soon have a much clearer picture of what we're doing well and where we're lagging, and superintendents will understand what is expected of them. Thanks to the new structure, we can be nimble and address issues as they arise, not after thousands of students have failed. And thanks to the new structure, it will be much easier to share resources fairly and maximize them across our schools and districts. And thanks to the new structure, we will finally have the leverage we need to exact the change that has proved elusive for so long. So as I wrap up, I'd like to reframe my remarks in terms of what parents can expect from the Department of Education. We're committed to building on the reforms of the past and making our school system more equal and more efficient, because that's how you build strong schools and strong communities. We're going to do a better job of evaluating schools using those measures that have been proven to help our students do better. And we're going to release new school quality guides that contain not just more data, but better data. And we will present it in a way that's easy to understand. If your child attends a struggling school, rest assured we're doing everything possible to improve that school. And if you don't see that, you'll know exactly who to call, your school superintendent or me. This new system represents a big step in our long journey toward a more perfect school system. Our work won't be done until every one of our children graduates high school college ready and graduates fully prepared to pursue the future they dreamed for themselves. And the challenges before us are daunting, no question, but we have already come so far. And thank you, and please add your efforts to our vision. Thank you, and good morning.
We'll do a couple of questions.